frustrations on my automated...
After several delays, the Arkham series returns for its final chapter, with Rocksteady taking the reins once more after Warner Bros. Games Montreal's Arkham Origins. While Origins offered few innovations and received universally lower scores than its predecessors, the excitement surrounding Arkham Knight has been huge, with Rocksteady returning to the franchise. Given that the most iconic characters have already been seen in previous entries, and the evolution of the franchise's mechanics have slowed, making the last entry feel like a rehash, there is cause for concern as to whether Arkham Knight is the game we both need and deserve. Has Rocksteady managed to rejuvenate the franchise it turned into a gaming staple, or is the stench of rotting game mechanics simply more pungent?
Any word from inside?
Nothing. We think there's a skeleton crew left in there, but they're not responding and the facility's locked down.
If they're still alive, I'll find them.
It's Halloween, roughly a year after the events of Arkham City, and Scarecrow threatens the entirety of Gotham with a new strain of his fear toxin. After exposing a small diner, and giving his only warning to Gotham, the city evacuates, leaving Gotham PD and a new military militia to roam the city under the orders of a mysterious new villain, only known as the Arkham Knight. The most enticing element of the narrative is the unknown identity of this masked villain, who not only knows Batman's tactics, but claims to know his past as well. Although the most engaging feature of the narrative, it eventually takes a back seat as the night progresses. If anything, the Arkham Knight becomes more of an annoyance, all talk, no action, barking at everything like your neighbor's stupid chihuahua. The mystery and intrigue surrounding him disappears, and you are left with an obnoxious commentator. Luckily, Scarecrow and an old friend keep the proceedings fresh by moving the narrative forward with an intelligent use of Batman's inner demons. All of the mysteries keep the narrative on a steady pace. Some of the outcomes don't exactly come out as gems in the end, but the narrative itself keeps the player moving forward, eagerly solving the puzzles of this Batman outing. As an open-world game, Arkham Knight is not short on activities for players to engage in. The main campaign, side missions, and all tasks should take about 30 hours to complete, excluding the 200+ Riddler trophies. It may seem like a lot, but after completing a few side missions, the excitement runs out. Aside from a few highlight moments, most are complete letdowns and leave iconic villains looking like jokes. Perhaps the most underwhelming aspect of this Batman game are the boss fights. Remember the many exciting and adrenaline-pumping villain encounters from the previous titles? Well, they're stretched thin here. Other than the finale and this guy, everything else falls short. Most are easily settled with a quick-time event or a run-of-the-mill takedown. The melee mechanics of the Arkham series has seen tweaks with each new entry, but has largely stayed the same. They've been solid from the start, and anything introduced has only made it better. Now at its final form, we can't say anything more than it's the best in its class, though the frequent limitation of the Arkham game's combat mechanics can be a detractor for those who have played a few of the dozens of games with similar mechanics. Most of the gadgets from the past have returned, with a few new ones that help along the narrative path. Rocksteady does incorporate them for more than just small uses, which is a relief since many have become useful in the smaller encounters. The most notable addition is the Batmobile, which finally makes its playable debut. Without a doubt, the design has taken inspiration from the Tumbler of the Dark Knight movie trilogy. It's an impressive piece of hardware, but it's one of the major downfalls of the game. Too much is centered around the Bat's ride, and it takes away from what Batman as a character is all about. The many methods of involving a Batmobile are smart from a mechanical standpoint, and it certainly dispels the notion that the Batmobile is simply fan service on wheels, but after a while, using this machine becomes repetitive. It's nice to see the Batmobile, but going around blowing stuff up isn't really what Batman is about. In terms of gameplay, the machine is a beast that handles like a lotus, which makes getting around the playing field a pleasure.
You can't escape!
The environments are still rigged to give Batman the many means to take out his enemies by providing all the vents, weak walls, wires, and vantage points needed for the Predator missions. Notable and seamlessly done, these many segments are not as claustrophobic or copy and paste as the past, giving it a more realistic architecture design. It's not a bunch of gargoyles across the streets and vents covering every possible square foot of the ground. Visually, Gotham City looks stunning. It's covered in detail, capturing the world perfectly from the lighting, textures, and the many other effects. We can't deny the visual boost. It's not like the Rocksteady team has had many issues in art direction in the past, but it's an amazing feat nonetheless. Character models have an obvious increase in poly count, and their animations are done extremely well once more. Watching the Batsuit as it assembles and disassembles is brilliant. Scarecrow looks menacing, and the design for the Arkham Knight is top-notch, despite how disappointing his character becomes. At times, there are some texture delays and frame rate drops, but it's nothing that would tarnish the experience unless you're extremely picky. Top it off with an immersive soundtrack and some great vocal performances, we can't deny that this is Gotham as we've never seen it before. The PC version, however, has had a disastrous launch. Many graphics options and effects were missing, and frame rates were completely abysmal with a 30 FPS cap. The PC port has since been pulled from sale, and a series of patches have improved things for those who do own the game. A fixed re-release is planned for the future, but buyers should be aware. As a finale, Arkham Knight delivers by giving us a memorable conclusion to a standout series of games. Coupled with an impressive art direction, soundtrack, and vocal performance, there should be nothing holding this down for a top 10 game spot this year. Sadly, for all that Arkham Knight does right, it's overshadowed by the many peak moments of previous titles. The Batmobile is a nice addition to the gameplay, but too much rests on its shoulders, taking away a lot of what makes Batman the Predator he is. There's little excitement in the boss fights, and 90% of the side missions don't build up to anything worthwhile. Arkham Knight will please fans of the world's greatest detective, but by and large, this is a game that still feels very similar to the games that came before it. While the mechanics upon which the game has been built have been polished until they shine, it's possible to suffer from a bit of Batman fatigue. Much of Arkham Knight is great, but none of it is transcendent. Expect to enjoy Arkham Knight, but don't expect that same warm tingle you got from the first playthrough of Arkham Asylum or Arkham City.